Hello, and welcome back to Lightning Law Moments. Today, we're talking about the sources, categories, and areas of law. Have you ever found yourself wondering, what exactly is law? Well, it's kind of a tough question to answer. So tough, in fact, that philosophers have been grappling with it for centuries. So unfortunately, we won't be able to answer that question today either. But what we can do is look at all the different ways that the law can be categorized and sorted in order to have a better understanding of what it actually is. What do I mean by that? Well, take this orange, for example. This simple little fruit can be categorized based on any of its characteristics. For example, we can categorize it by the type of fruit, by the color, by the texture, the taste, the nutrients, and even where it comes from. The exact same thing can be done with the law. So the best way to answer the question of what is law is to examine it and sort it into different boxes by source, category, and area. Let's start with its sources of law. Where exactly do our laws come from? In Canada, we have three sources of law: common law, statute law, and constitutional law. The common law takes us all the way back to King Henry II of England, who used to send his judges to settle disputes in different parts of the land. In this way, the law would be accessible by and common to all people. Eventually, these judges came to understand that similar cases with similar facts and similar issues should have similar results. That idea has been adopted into the Canadian legal system, where we sometimes call the common law case law, which includes decisions made by judges in the past. The second source of law is statute law, and that simply refers to laws that are made by our elected representatives, such as those in Parliament or provincial legislatures. They're sometimes referred to as acts or legislation. An example of this would be the Criminal Code, which was made by Parliament for all of Canada. And that brings us to the third source of law, which is constitutional law. The Canadian Constitution is the most supreme law of our land. This document assigns legislative jurisdiction, meaning that it tells us which area of lawmaking the federal and provincial governments are responsible for. In this way, it limits the powers of our government and ensures that they, stay in their own lanes, if you will. Now, all the laws that come from these three sources can be categorized in different ways. The first way to categorize a law is to think of it as either substantive or procedural law. Substantive law tells us our rights and responsibilities. It tells us exactly what we can and can't do. Procedural law, on the other hand, tells us how to enforce those rights and responsibilities that come with the substantive law. So think of them as the what and the how. Let's take a look at an example. Section 349(1) of the Criminal Code says every person who without lawful excuse enters or is in a dwelling house with intent to commit an indictable offense in it is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term of not more than 10 years, or of an offense punishable by summary conviction. What do you think? Which part of this offense do you think is substantive, and which part is procedural? You're absolutely right. This is the substantive part because it's telling us what we're not allowed to do. It's defining the crime. It's in this substantive portion that we would find the actus reus and the mens rea for this crime. And this right here is the procedural part because it's telling us how to proceed if this crime is committed. It provides options on whether to consider it an indictable or summary offense and the penalties that go with each. Another way of categorizing laws is by looking at them as either public law, which is between individuals and the state, or private law, which is between individuals and other individuals and corporations. Each of these two categories can then be broken down into different areas of law. Public law, for instance, includes criminal law, constitutional law, and administrative law. Private law, on the other hand, includes tort law, contract law, wills and estates law, real estate law, family law, and employment law. There are, of course, many other areas of law that I didn't mention, and each of those can also be categorized in this way. Let's practice what we just learned and all the different ways that we can label and sort the law. Section 2 of the Civil Marriages Act tells us that marriage for civil purposes is the lawful union of two persons to the exclusion of others. What do you think? What sources, categories, and areas did you pick up from that? Well, we saw the word act in the title of the law, Civil Marriages Act, so we know that it's statute law. We also know that it's substantive because it's telling us the definition of marriage. And finally, because it's dealing with marriage, we know that it falls under the area of family law. Now that you can explain the sources, categories, and areas of law, it's time to turn your mind onto those bigger and tougher questions, like what is law, and what role does it have in Canadian society? What influences can we see from early legal systems, such as that of the Persian Empire, which gave us the very first Charter of Human Rights? And what can we learn from ancient and current Indigenous legal traditions about how to better protect the land and waters for future generations? I'll leave you now to reflect on those important questions. But whether you're a student or a teacher, be sure to check out the description in this video for links to resources that I've created for more practice. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe for more. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, stay curious and question on.
Created using Powtoon.